You know that feeling. You're at the airport, staring at the departure board, and then you see it, canceled. It's frustrating, right? But what if the reason for that canceled flight points to a way bigger and, frankly, a much scarier problem? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on pilot fatigue. You've probably seen that phrase a dozen times, crew constraints. It sounds so harmless, so routine. But what if it's actually code for something critical? Something that doesn't just mess with your travel plans, but puts everyone's safety at risk. Let's dig into what that phrase is really hiding. So, where do we even begin? Well, let's start with the official story. This is what the airlines tell us, what they report. And trust me, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Take a look at this number, 755. A recent report from Indian airline Indigo mentioned that in just one period, 755 of their flights were canceled because of what they called crew FDTL constraints. That's a massive number of cancellations. So what on earth is FDTL? Okay, so FDTL stands for Flight and Duty Time Limitations. Basically, these are the official rules that are supposed to stop pilots from getting too tired to fly. But here's the thing. When you see hundreds and hundreds of flights being canceled because pilots are hitting these absolute limits, it's a huge red flag. It tells you the whole system is stretched to its breaking point thanks to a post-pandemic travel boom and a shortage of pilots. This isn't just a simple scheduling issue. It's a full-blown fatigue crisis. But cancellation numbers only tell part of the story. The part that happens on the ground. What's happening inside the cockpit? That's way more alarming. So let's look at what pilots themselves are saying. In a 2022 survey of Indian pilots, a full 2/3 of them, that's 66%, admitted to doing something that should honestly make every single passenger take a deep breath. Yep, you heard that right. 66% have accidentally fallen asleep at the controls. And let's be clear, this is not the planned, controlled rest you might have heard about. This is microsleep. These are short, involuntary moments of sleep that can last just a few seconds. But when you're flying at 500 miles per hour, a few seconds is an eternity. And it gets worse. The problem often starts before they even take off. That same survey uncovered another statistic about how pilots are feeling the moment they show up for work. Just think about that for a second. Nearly 3/4 of these pilots have been in a situation where they knew, in their professional judgment, that they were too tired to fly safely, but they went ahead and did it anyway. It just shows you the incredible pressure they're under, caught between their own well-being and the need to keep the planes flying. So the big question is, why? Why is this happening? What is pushing these highly trained professionals to the absolute edge of their physical and mental limits? Let's break down the anatomy of their exhaustion. The data here is, well, it's crystal clear. The number one cause, cited by a whopping 73% of pilots, is having to do a bunch of early morning flights in a row. Imagine waking up at 3 a.m. day after day. It just wrecks your body's natural clock, your circadian rhythm. You end up with this massive sleep debt that one night of rest just can't fix. Now, to really understand how dangerous this is, scientists have this really powerful comparison. If you've been awake for just 17 hours straight, your brain is functioning at the same level as someone with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05%. Your judgment gets cloudy, your reaction times get slower. For all practical purposes, you are impaired. And here's the crazy part. Aviation regulators have an absolute zero tolerance policy for alcohol. A pilot can't have a single drop of alcohol in their system, and yet the very schedules they're assigned can make them just as impaired as if they'd been drinking. And that's all perfectly legal. So this brings us to a really important question. If the rules are there and the danger is so obvious, why don't pilots just call in and say they're too fatigued to fly? Well, the answer seems to be buried deep in the culture of the aviation industry itself. A 2024 survey reveals a pretty chilling reality. When pilots were asked if the fear of an adverse reaction affected their decision to report fatigue, 40% said it had a deep influence, and another 30% said it had a significant influence. You add those up, that's 70% of pilots who are afraid to speak up when they're exhausted. And this anonymous comment from a pilot, man, it just cuts right to the heart of the problem. FRMS is the Fatigue Risk Management System. It's supposed to be the safety net, but pilots are saying it's useless because they're scared of getting in trouble or even fired for using it. The very system designed to protect them is seen as a career risk. So this culture of silence, this pressure to fly, it has real life or death consequences. How does all this connect back to the safety of your flight? this isn't just a hypothetical risk. Research shows the fatigue was a likely cause in about a fifth of all major aviation accidents. It was a contributing factor in the tragic Air India Express crash in Mangalore back in 2010, where the cockpit voice recorder suggested the captain had been asleep for a huge part of the flight. And beyond the immediate danger in the sky, there's a long-term health crisis brewing for pilots. Their work hours can go way beyond the 55-hour weekly limit that the World Health Organization connects to a higher risk of stroke and heart disease. So it's probably no surprise that the number of pilots being declared medically unfit to fly is actually going up. So what does fatigue actually do to a pilot in the cockpit? It's not just about feeling sleepy. It literally slows down their reaction time if there's an emergency. It messes with their judgment when they have to make a split-second decision. It can cause them to forget a critical step on a checklist, or even make it harder to physically see what's right in front of them during a landing. So all of this leaves us with one final critical question. We have a system that is clearly pushing pilots to their absolute breaking point, physically and mentally. So are the rules we have in place actually designed to protect the human, biological limits of a pilot? Or are they designed to serve the commercial demands of the airline's schedule? The answer to that question matters every single time we fly.